Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's vOLTHA TST, first one of the year. So let me take the opportunity to wish everybody a happy new year, and I hope you had some good time during the break. Maybe a little different from what we used to, but still nonetheless a good time. And so happy new year to everybody, and thanks for being here. Look forward to working with all of you in the upcoming weeks, months, and in the upcoming year. So, first order of business that we have today is a discussion on well, the things that we want to do in 2.7 and a few things that got postponed after 2.6. So for 2.7, we started within ONF creating a document, which is which we call the 2.7 wish list, which is here. The link is this one. And it's a public document where we have a list of things that we heard from different parts, and we know people and operators and the different groups that are working within the vOLTHA community would like to get in for 2.7. As you can see, it's already a pretty big list. I don't call, we did not call this a roadmap because we have not yet prioritized these items, and we are not yet sure that these are all the things that might need to get done in the near future, and we are also not really committing to any of these unless we find the proper resources. So as you know, in 2.6, some of the items got slipped out of the release because there was nobody on the community, nor within the operators, nor within ONF that could work on them. So this is why it's not a roadmap. It's more of a wish list of things that the people would like to get done within 2.7. And then we are going to go ahead and with the operators and the TST, prioritize these and get assigned folks to them. And if things don't get committed with people, they are just simply not going to get done unless somebody else steps up and agrees to do them. So that's the reason why it's a wish list. There's a lot of things within the document. The one thing that I want to mention is that the red is things that we know got left out of 2.6. The black are things that we want to, that are new things that came in. The fact that there's some stuff left out of was left out of 2.6 does not mean that it will get a high priority within 2.7. The whole list will be looked as a whole and be discussed for priorities. So within here, you'll find a few other links to documents. For example, in the OpenONU Go, there's a few elements that need the document in itself. The big functionality for that is going to be the software update and a few alarms, maybe performance PMs that we need to do. A very big item that got left over after 2.7 and after 2.6 was the software upgrade and how we deal with software upgrade of the vOLTHA components. A new requirement came in from Deutsche Telekom to have the capability to handle the MPLS pseudo wire within the OLT, meaning that the OLT will act as one of the endpoints of the pseudo wire. There's a description in there in that document. There were a few patches from Andrei for the Docker file and the Helm charts of both ONOS and Atomics to avoid the pseudo use. Those didn't get into 2.6 due to testing reasons. We might want to get them into 2.7. There's an OLT topology app that DT would like to contribute to the community. There are other things like differentiate the OLT disconnect and the encryption of the channel that were not done in 2.6. There is the discussion of whether to move from Kafka to gRPC, and that might or might not happen in 2.7, again, depending on resources. There's a few logging tasks, and thanks, David, for putting some more detail to them that need to be done to complete the logging elements that were done in 2.5, 2.6. Mac Learning for Telecom. There's an effort to avoid using the kind vOLTHA script and instead just use Helm charts, which is, I think, a very good effort. Again, was on the back burner in 2.5 and 2.6, and we might get it done in 2.7. Again, depending on priority. There is a task that I've discussed with Amit for the OpenONU adapter to simultaneously interwork with different OLT adapters. That does not mean that one adapter will work with the two OLT adapters, but it means that in the same stack, we could deploy two OLT adapters and two ONU adapters to handle two OLTs of different brands and each of the connected ONUs to them. There's a few bug fixes that we need to make sure that we get in. One is initial almost readiness that you can see in this Jira ticket. A very important thing regarding scale test is the BBSIMA GMP. Then there is a discussion about storage persistency and HA that started with the Bitnami, with the move from a TCD charts to the Bitnami TCD charts, from the incubator one to the Bitnami ones. And that really had us question what is the right model for persistency and HA, if we want to enable persistency, if we don't want to enable persistency, if we want to use a TCD or we want to move to another storage. So that's why that's the bullet in there. There's a few tests that we want to have, some leftovers from 2.6 and some possible addition of some GPON depending on the continuous certification program and the changes that we will bring in due to the reason update that the folks from Siena are contributing. And there's a few OLTs that are coming in through for the continuous certification program. So as of right now, these are the elements that us as the ONF team and a few other folks managed to come up with that they thought it is are the highest priority, and we would like to get them into 2.7. Again, depending on priority and depending on the operator's requirements, but this is what we came up with. Before I go forward, are there any questions? Are there any thoughts? I would like to gauge people's interest in these elements. And especially if we missed something, or if some of these things sound really important, or if you know you're already working on some of these, and so you can take it on.
Andre, I think we can still add items to this list, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as I said, it's a wish list. So if you have any items that you want to add, just feel free. You can edit the document, just go in and add them to the list. It's not prioritized, so don't worry about the order, just put them in. And okay. As I said, we're going to discuss it with the operators, and whatever gets top priority and whatever gets staffed by everybody in the community will get done for 2.7.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have anything in mind, Mahir?
Currently, yes. I have multi-UNI support, for example.
Oh, okay.
And I have on-demand performance metric requests on my mind now, currently. Perhaps the TCON type selection, say in technology profiles. But I didn't think so much. I have to talk with the guys in Netsia and Türk Telekom.
Yep.
So maybe we can add some other items to the list.
I see. Ken, did you have anything? What is on your mind? Do you think it's the right time to start the Kafka to gRPC?
I think we need to look at it from the perspective of do we need to do that? I think it's there's a lot of reason to do that, but given that we are able to run with multiple clusters, multiple stacks, and support 10,000 ONUs,
Yeah.
is it something that we want to entertain at this time?
Right. Good.
It simplifies the overall solution, though, because it takes one less component out of it. So there's an operational simplicity there.
Yeah, that's correct. I'm just looking from a practical perspective in terms of the amount of changes that will be required across, and the level of instability that we're going to introduce by introducing gRPC. It's the right approach. It's just like the level of changes that will go in. Is it something we want to entertain at this time?
David, do you mean that it will remove Kafka?
From the vOLTHA solution, I understand Kafka is still part of the overall monitoring aspect, but it eliminates it from Kafka, or from the core, which simplifies the core.
Yeah, but it still be around for alarms and reporting.
Yes, agreed. So it simplifies the vOLTHA solution, kind of the core component solution, to now one communication mechanism. I mean, Ken's right. It does introduce some stability, and we're going to see some other issues around it. And as he was speaking, I was wondering if removing Kafka is the equivalent of changing an API, and if so, or an interface. At least it is from a troubleshooting operational perspective. And if so, does that constitute a 3.0 change versus a 2.7 change?
Is Amit on the call?
Yes, sir.
Hey, Amit. So, there were a few items that we were waiting for the transition to ONU adapter Go, one of them being the software update. Do you think is that something we can tackle in 2.7 now?
Yeah, I think we should pick it up, but again, I think it's the resourcing is something that needs to be looked into. But
So
it's a good time that we get started on this. Yeah.
So to the best of my understanding, Surf,
Yeah.
the DT has asked Atran, especially Holger, Michael, and that have been working on the Go adapter to get that functionality into 2.7.
Actually, we have another implementation in Netsia on software upgrade. So we may discuss it first. So we're not doing it via ONU adapter, but we are downloading it to agents, and we do it via agent to make it faster. So we may.
So, Mahir,
then, yeah.
Mahir, when you download it to the agent and then let the old, I mean, isn't that using BAL's own OMCI implementation to do the software upgrade?
Actually, it doesn't use the OMCI, but it uses BAL APIs here. BAL have an API to say load the file onto the chip, and then.
See, that's what I don't understand. How can it not use OMCI? That's the only way the OLT communicates with the ONU.
Yep.
Is it not?
Yeah. I mean, you you shouldn't use OMCI in your software, in our agent software, OMCI library. So the Bell itself probably use OMCI encapsulation. But
so the issue
So
that I
that's a.
see.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead, sir.
Well, I was just saying, then that's an edge core only solution, or at least that's a whoever uses BAL only solution, right? You're just trusting the OLT to sort of avoid Volta's own OMCI stack, use its own OMCI stack to do the software upgrade, and that. Well, so that means that every OLT vendor that comes in to the Volta solution basically just sidesteps Volta and does its own OMCI just for software upgrade. And that just doesn't seem right to me. Especially, especially if the performances can be improved with the ONU adapter, and then we can have a generic solution, right? So, Andrea, you go ahead.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. So that limits the solution to be used with anybody that has the BAL API and uses the OpenOLT agent. What the proposal to do it within the OpenONU Go is that it's independent of anything that is on the OLT, and it's actually done through our own OMCI library and our own OMCI channel. And so that is basically makes it more generic. And that is why we want to work on it. That's why we want to implement it that way, because it's more generic and it's not just OpenOLT agent specific implementation.
Now it could be optional, right? For example,
sure.
You may not choose to do it through the Volta stack.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think the Volta stack should have that ability.
Is the Volta stack maintaining any state around that so that if they sidestep it, there's an inconsistency between what's actually there and the state that Volta thinks there?
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I don't. Go ahead.
Yeah, the software upgrade has its own states to do the upgrade on the ONU.
Doing it in ONU adapter is bad in a way that if you want to download image to more than one ONU, I think that you want to do the downloads to the ONUs of a whole PON port, for example. You go for tens or perhaps hundreds of ONU in a time, and you download the same image on different ONUs on the same Kafka and same components, because the image source is on the ONU adapter and it sends the same image to the OLT adapter for each ONU. So if you try to download 100 ONUs, then you send the same image 100 times to OLT adapter, and it sends it 100 times to OLT agent, so on. So it's not a big problem for one ONU, but when you go for multiple ONUs, then it becomes a headache.
Does that mean we just have to change the design in Volta to accommodate that? Because I think what you mentioned is absolutely right. We want to address that. But does that mean change kind of the solution or to redesign the Volta solution for image download versus go around it?
Well, so Amit, did you not consider this? I'm forgetting now. New year, everything is washed out of my head. But did we not consider this?
Yeah, we did consider this option as well, right? But again, I think the same comments, right? Because it becomes a very edge core specific solution, right? Or OpenOLT agent specific solution, to be precise, which can't be adapted by other vendors. So if we have to have a generic solution, then it has to be sent across multiple times. But so I think we need to weighing the pros and cons of it, right? So on one hand, it would be generic, but yes, definitely the performance can't be matched with what we could achieve by directly sending a message from the chipset itself, right, or the OLT. So
Isn't there a way to design the vOLTHA implementation so that if there is an optimization that the vendor can do, it can be taken advantage of, and if not, then we resend it each time?
that should be possible. As in, we could change the interfaces in such a way that yes, that an optimized path is available, and if you implement it, you could go with that path. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't that be the best solution then? Because then if you're using EdgeCore, you can take advantage of it, and if you're not, yeah, then it still works and has the same external API. It's just the implementation means you're downloading the image a lot more. And that way, a vendor can actually show its benefits and still be compliant with the generic standard.
Yeah, so this thing would come from the OLT adapters capabilities, right? So when the OLT adapters register with the core, if they could expose capabilities saying that yes, I could handle optimized ONU software upgrades, maybe then we bypass the ONU adapter in that case, and the download directly happens to the OLT adapter, and yeah, that would be possible.
Okay, so it sounds like we will revisit this design. Also talk to the operators. I think the TST is meeting with the operators next week, so we'll have that discussion there as well to see if this is something that in 2.7 we will tackle. Any other questions?
Yeah, can I jump back
comments?
to the Kafka issue?
Sure.
As I recall, DT had mentioned that they were investigating an alternative to Kafka for messaging. And any update or information on what that was actually being used for? Was it just for the performance monitoring, or was it used for inter-component communication as well? And if so, any update in that, I guess?
So I haven't heard anything. Yeah, this was maybe a year ago when I heard that instead of Kafka, there was some talk about using something else. And Andrea, have you heard anything? Or Amit, have you heard anything? I've forgotten what was the other. What was the other? What was the sub? Yeah, I've forgotten the
Taz name. Or NTAZ. I ran into it the other week. I can't. That was again before the holiday, so my brain flushed.
No, that doesn't ring a bell. It has to be something else. Okay. Taz? No, that doesn't sound right.
No, I think it was a question between Kafka and NATS.
NATS, yeah, that's it.
That's what it was.
NATS.
I had all the letters. I just had it mixed up.
Yeah. So I think right now in A4, both of them are being used for different purposes. For the management plane, NATS has been used as well. And Kafka comes as part of the vOLTHA stack, and it is being used for that as well.
I think the attempt was just to reduce the number of things, just because the larger A4 solution used something else. So there was a query to vOLTHA, hey, can you use this instead of Kafka? And we said no.
All right, cool, thanks.
Yeah, so no, I haven't heard anything, so I guess that's not really something we would like to do. Anything else on this list, or anything that we forgot?
I wasn't here at the beginning. Did we agree or disagree to get rid of kind vOLTHA and just go to kind of the Uber umbrella chart?
So let me maybe give some context to everybody about what that is. So the idea there was, as most of you know, we have the script called kind vOLTHA script that kind of at the moment deploys, it's a jack of all trades. You can deploy Kubernetes with it through kind. You can then deploy the infrastructure like etcd, Kafka, and ONOS, and then you can deploy a stack, which is the with agent, the core, and the adapters. The idea would, and it's become a fairly convoluted and heavy script. The idea was that we could go away from that script and just use what's called an umbrella chart in Helm, meaning a chart that depends on the different elements that you want to deploy to their Helm charts. It would be divided in two, what we call vOLTHA infra and what is vOLTHA stack. The vOLTHA infra would include etcd, Kafka, and ONOS, which is the common infrastructure shared across multiple stacks. And one is the other one, the vOLTHA stack, would just deploy the with agent, the core, and the adapters. And the one for the infra will also configure ONOS to the extent that it can. Any customization needs to be done after. So that's kind of the idea. I know Matteo has started some thoughts around this, and it has an initial proof of concept patch. So Matteo, if you want to give us a little bit more detail, feel free. Well, I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
Yeah, so I agree too. Otherwise, I wouldn't have tried playing with it. But yeah, basically, just so far I have two umbrella charts: one to deploy the infrastructure on etcd, Kafka, Radius, the BBC Msadi server when needed, etc., and one to deploy a single vOLTHA stack. And the idea is that we completely decouple the environment deployment and management from the management of our components. So we won't install kind anymore for you. You are required to provide some kind of Kubernetes cluster. It doesn't really matter which one. Can be Minikube, can be kind, can be a real Kubernetes cluster, can be VMs. And you'll be responsible to decide how to expose the ports on your cluster. And then you have another chart to deploy a single vOLTHA stack, and the idea is that you should be able to do Helm install vOLTHA stack -- set name equal vOLTHA 1, vOLTHA 2, vOLTHA 3, or whatever you want to call that particular stack, and you should be able to point all of them to the same common infrastructure.
I'll vote for support of that as well, as long as I think it's an important aspect of it. We eliminate the kind vOLTHA script, right?
Yeah.
Which means there's going to be very distinct steps when people deploy this. Deploy the cluster, deploy infra, and again, infra, even the vOLTHA infra is not something that's part of vOLTHA in some respects, right? They could deploy infra any way they actually want to. And then, of course, vOLTHA stacks, deploying the stacks, which I think is the key aspect. But again, I just get rid of the Uber script, if you will, the kind vOLTHA script.
So personally, I like the Uber script, but I don't nearly use vOLTHA as much as some of the other people on this call. And so therefore, my opinion really doesn't count here. It's up to the people, maybe even the operators, right? I mean, I don't know how they are doing it. They're probably not using the kind vOLTHA script. But if we want to make this change, we should do it early in the release. We don't want to come up in March and say, hey, do we want to do this? we
So
should
again, the kind
decide
VOLTHA
early.
script today can be used to deploy on any Kubernetes cluster. So
Right.
operatives may or may not. I don't know what they're doing. So what do I want to say there? The issue of being able to break it up allows for developers to also be very specific about what they're trying to do, right? Oh, I want to restart a single component, or I want to restart a stack. A lot of the complexity in the kind VOLTHA script is giving the developers that flexibility in a script that tries to do everything. And so by separating it out, I think it makes that, I think it actually will help developers, because now they can be very explicit about what they're trying to do.
The one risk I see is that I'm all for it, as I said before. The one risk I see is that in 6 months from now, we have another script that instead of using like 10 Helm commands, it uses just the Helm, the common Helm chart. That's the risk I see.
Why is that a risk? It wouldn't be a script. It'd be the umbrella chart. Why is an umbrella chart?
No.
Umbrella chart?
On top of the umbrella chart, David.
Oh, yes. Okay, then I agree.
Somebody that comes in with a script that deploys infra and the cluster infra and the umbrella chart, and then does a bunch of configuration.
Yeah.
And maybe it's like private somewhere, but the risk is definitely there.
The one benefit of
Docker Compose.
Yeah, the one benefit of kind VOLTHA is it's a single step to go from 0 to VOLTHA. And the question is, do we want that capability? And if so, then yeah, there's going to have to be some level of wrapper, even around the umbrella chart.
Honestly, I think that having one step to go from 0 to VOLTHA means that we don't ever try a component restart and component update. So I would say, no, we don't want one command to go from 0 to VOLTHA. We want people to go through a process. So if you have to test an adapter, you just restart that adapter and you're implicitly testing that the restart works.
Yep, I agree with that. I think the 0 to VOLTHA is kind of the, hey, someone happened on the VOLTHA project and wants to try it to see if it actually runs, because I know I've done this. I go to an open source project, before I dig too into it, I install it. And if it doesn't install, I go to the next one. And so the 0 to VOLTHA gives people confidence that the thing actually works.
Yeah, I think everyone does that. I'll try. If it doesn't install, I'll move on. But when I'm trying something that is a little more complex, like VOLTHA, I don't mind having to issue 3-4 commands.
Nope, and I agree. And again, I think with the umbrella chart, should be very few steps to go from 0 to VOLTHA with the umbrella, because it really is, hey, deploy your Kubernetes cluster however you want, and then there's multiple ways to do that. And we can give recommendations and documentation still, or options. After that, it should be 2 Helm charts, and you should be up at VOLTHA.
Yeah. So I don't know, this seems to me a very similar conversation to the one we had in Cord, to keep the build system, move away from the build system. I don't remember how many people were around for that, but I know some were. And the moment we actually moved away from the build system, the Cord platform became much, much better and much easier to operate. So that's my main reason to say that we don't really need a one-step process to bring up a system.
Yeah, and again, I'm all for it. It forces people, I think that's probably good, to use the expected native commands.
It also forces people to understand how the system is composed. What are the pieces and what is actually happening? Because otherwise, if you just do vault up, you don't really care what's happening underneath.
Yep. Agreed.
Anybody else? it seems there is kind of an agreement to do it, but I've heard only a few voices. I would very much like to hear everybody on this.
Well, we can also take this offline and start a thread on the mailing list.
More than a thread, it's a poll to me. But sure. Ken, you wanted to say something?
Well, I'm in agreement with this approach. There's, I think, one good thing that we had with vOLTHA was like it was one place where you can have the documentation and everything. You know how to, if you forget a command, you say, okay, I'll just do this and that, and I'll figure it out easily. If in the new approach we can replicate something like that, at least have right documentation. If I want to do X, how do I do it? Well documented. I think I'm okay with that. Because it was very easy to use vOLTHA.
Mahir, do you have any opinion on this? Amit?
Actually, I don't. I mean, vOLTHA is a pretty good tool for developers and to use easily and make tests. Of course, for developers only. So I don't have any idea which one is the better currently.
Similar comments from my side as well. Personally, I've not used it much, so can't really comment on, or can't really add valuable comments on this.
I guess the point is we can substitute it, but we need good documentation on how to use the other thing.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
It is true. It is true. I have to say that the umbrella chart goes more towards a production deployment, I think, because, for example, to the best of my knowledge, DT does not use vOLTHA at all, meaning that they deploy manually each of the charts. And having an umbrella chart, they would just then deploy the umbrella chart, which would make life easier for them in the deployment scenarios.
But I mean, the deployment charts for operators, this may be none of our business, I think, here. Operators can prepare their Helm charts for their deployments.
Yeah, I agree on that. We only need to support a way to deploy a development environment. Because if we start to support a way to deploy a production environment, that's really a different game. Like, for example, now vOLTHA does not support to set passwords for Kafka and TST and other security stuff, the topic replication. You need to do that in the verify.
Yes.
I would think though that our vOLTHA Helm chart, not get rid of the infra, so really the stack Helm chart, should be able to be used in a production environment.
I would agree with that.
So why not move to these charts, the umbrella chart, and just for somebody who just wants to bring this up, right? Doesn't care about the parameters, doesn't care about how many stacks you deploy or whatever. If somebody, if we can write a small script to go from 0 to vOLTHA using these umbrella charts, right? That could be also an option, right? That somebody wants to come in and try it for the very first time. You do a vOLTHA up, and it'll under the hood, it'll just do the very basic minimum, and that's it. That the script won't do all the world's options that vOLTHA does, but it does make you go from 0 to vOLTHA in 30 seconds, right?
Yeah, of course, the original script didn't have all those options either, right? The risk there is that it grows over time. and
Yeah,
becomes back
that's
what we
true.
have, right?
Yeah,
Well,
that is true.
that is also
Well,
if we want to go down this route, which is what I was mentioning before, it is also our responsibility how much a script grows.
yeah, we can say
How
that
are we?
this
Go
is
ahead,
all
I'm sorry.
we're going to do. We're not going to
Yeah.
let it grow over time.
Guys, my point
What is our
like,
track record on that discipline, by the way?
not very good. So guys, if you look at other similar projects, if you look at Kind, you don't have a script to try out Kind. You have a documentation page with the 4 commands that you need to try out Kind. So I don't see why we can't have that with vOLTHA once we boil it down to 2-3 commands. I understand we need a script if we need to issue 45 commands, but if it's 2 or 3, I don't think there is a big step in trying that out.
Let's do this. Let's work on the umbrella chart. Let's work on the documentation from the umbrella chart. Make sure it's 4 commands, and when we arrive to the point we say this is what we consider the first beta version, we assess and we say, can we do it with 4 commands? My thought is most likely yes. We won't need the script. And with good documentation that works reliably, people are just going to issue those 4 commands. And if somebody wants to do a script in their own development machine that does those 4 commands for him, just let him do it. If we arrive at a point that we see that we cannot condense everything to 4 commands, then we would have to keep with Kind vOLTHA or with another script. But I guess
fair
let's
enough.
start by
I think
defining those 4
fair enough. And I think it's worth a shot. So, and from what I hear from the TST members, it's tending to the positive. So I think it's worth a shot.
Okay, so I have a preliminary patch for that. I'll spend some time today polishing it and bringing it in a workable state so you can run a sanity test on it, and I'll share it on the mailing list.
Okay. Now, one thing you would have seen from this wish list is different topic. And I wanted to make something clear, right? That on this wish list, we haven't mentioned anywhere that we want to go beyond 10K. Okay, 10K subscribers on when it comes to scale. Mostly because we made a real push for it in 2.6. We spent literally the entire month of October on improving a single stack, and then most of November, parts of December, to get to the point where we can, claim 10K subscribers. And we want to put a pause on that right now because, well, for one thing, 10K subscribers is a fair bit, and we don't expect in production to hit that number of 10K in the next 6 months. I don't. This is my guess, but I don't see us getting there. So I think this is a good point for us to take a step back and work on this one thing that is missing from that 10K number, and that's this focus on multicast, which we left out. So we need to revisit BBSIM, check its IGMP, capabilities, the capabilities to handle multicast routes and multicast groups, and then actually test multicast at scale with the ONOS apps involved. I'm sure there's improvements that are necessary over there and so on. And so in 2.7, that would be the focus for scale, revisiting multicast. Any thoughts, comments, questions, abuse?
Yeah, this is fair to add multicast to the say scale as a as a roadmap. This is, I think this is good. We should edit, so it's fair.
So internally, Mahir,
10K, we
yeah,
also may increase this 10K to something else as a new roadmap.
well, you know, that's a
targets.
Well, it's a question of effort, right? And who's putting in that effort, and where do you focus that effort on? You can't do both simultaneously, right? So, I mean, internally, Mahir, in Netsia, Argala, how have you done multicast scale testing?
Multicast scale testing?
Yeah.
Yeah, our guys in our side also looking at IGMP in BBSIM. So they're trying to prepare something to test with BBSIM, but not yet completed.
Okay.
So we didn't, in fact, we did it well, but we're also working on.
Right. So I think it helps.
OLT. We're trying to make 16 OLT on a pod and 1,000 per OLT.
Yeah, we weren't able to test multicast at scale from one end to other end, but we tested the ONOS apps in terms of scalability and performance. But having BBSIM to do those kind of tests, that would be useful for sure.
So I didn't understand you completely, Sarkant. You said you tested the apps.
Yes,
scale,
we tested the ONOS apps.
How did you do that? How did you do that if without BBSIM?
I'm not sure about the details. I can learn, but we didn't use the vOLTHA in multicast tests. So just use the ONOS apps.
I guess you can use Mininet to test the ONOS application at scale, or maybe not at scale, but you can just simulate OpenFlow messages into the southbound of ONOS to test the app at scale.
Yes.
Okay.
I also believe that the 10K subscriber would be an important milestone, especially if we think about the etcd problems. We shouldn't build up more features on top of etcd, I believe. I also put a comment below Mateo's comment about the etcd problem. We should seriously think about changing the etcd. We should find something else.
Yeah, so it's either that or we rethink if persistence really is necessary in etcd, right? That's the whole persistence discussion. And recently, we had a discussion, I think late last year, about whether persistence is necessary in ONOS. And we can similarly have a discussion about whether persistence is necessary in etcd. Because if we leave out persistence in etcd, we have no problem with scaling etcd, right? I mean, our scale numbers, these 10K numbers, if you would have noticed in the release notes, we are still using the etcd the earlier, the incubator chart, right? We're not using the Bitnami chart for the scale test. It doesn't do well when you turn on persistence.
There's some small problem if we don't turn on the etcd persistency. If you restart the etcd, one of the etcd pods, then the etcd pod doesn't come up again. It cannot join the etcd cluster again because it loses some of the internal data, and the other etcd pods doesn't accept the etcd joins request. So then we lose the scalability of etcd without the persistency. Not a small.
Well, that's
problem.
surprising. I wasn't aware of that. So if not the entire etcd cluster, but one of the nodes in the cluster goes down and it comes back up, it cannot rejoin the cluster?
Yes, that is what I saw when I tested it.
I've heard that if it loses quorum, if the etcd loses quorum, that happens. But if you have 3 etcd nodes and one goes down, it's supposed to be able to restart and rejoin. But if 2
I'm
goes
pretty
down and you lose quorum, then all bets are off.
Right. So I'm pretty sure we have integration tests that do that remove one of the nodes in the cluster and then restarts it. Am I recollecting incorrectly? Yeah.
No, I remember Hangwei worked on that. But that was with the incubator charts.
Are you sure it's on?
I'm not sure. I'll check on that test. But yeah, if this is not the case, then this is a big issue, and we'll need to figure out what happens with persistence, because one node goes down and cannot rejoin the client, the cluster, even with persistence. That's a big problem. But I would be
but that's not what Serkan said. He said you need to turn on persistence for a node to rejoin a cluster.
Yes, correct.
Right. So if Hangwei had written a test for this and it was still using the incubator charts, well, those incubator charts did not have persistence turned on. So that test would confirm if things are working correctly when etcd. Does this restarted node rejoin the cluster? Does functionality continue to work or not? So we do need to revisit this thing.
In any case, I don't think that's a kind of an issue, even if etcd has persistence, in the sense of I think what we should really look at is whether vOLTHA needs persistence in etcd. For the type of data that we have, if etcd itself needs some persistence to keep its quorum going, then so be it. But as long as we don't add to the problem by just loading etcd with a lot of vOLTHA data, that may not be required.
But
maybe
if you have the option to say that we don't need persistency, but you can use your persistency for yourself, it's okay. Is there such option?
Sorry, I didn't get the last part.
I think that what Mayra said was tell etcd that it just persists the data it needs to manage the cluster. It doesn't persist the data in the store.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I've seen something like that because I think at one point in time we were looking at is there a way to tell etcd to persist a certain form of information and some other form just leave it in memory. I don't think I've seen such an option.
Serkan?
Yes.
I just wanted to circle back on the issue that you mentioned there, 1513. Just looking that issue up, it says it's a single node etcd stuck in crashed loop back after restart. So I think this issue is seen only in the single node etcd deployment, probably not in a multi-node.
Yeah, which again is quorum's lost, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
So
the link I put, it's not directly related to the issue I was talking about, but it's includes some hints. If you read from start to end, yeah, the quorum issue, as David's, the quorum problem. So without the persistency, you have the quorum problem.
Yeah, but if you lose a node out of 3, you shouldn't lose the quorum. But anyway, we have a test for this. We can make sure that test is still running and verify it and keep it under control.
Yeah, okay. It could also be about the Bitnami chars. Maybe it's a bug in the Bitnami chars, but we couldn't find a solution.
So yeah, so this is definitely something we should revisit in 2.7. But internally in Netsia, Argela, are you guys trying to move away from etcd? Are you looking at other options, or
yes.
or you were just trying to warn us that to go beyond 10K, we should rethink this option? Or
we still use the etcd, but we are also looking at other options like Redis. We started some POCs, and we don't have the results yet. We are working on it.
Okay, thanks.
You are welcome.
Okay. Andrea?
Okay. Yeah. So I think it's right about on the hour. There were a few more items on the agenda for today, especially patches postponed for after 2.6. The reason, I think we're going to talk about this next time with a demo from the Siena team. There was a patch from Circuit for multiple etcd keys delete that I would like to for everybody to review, if you can, to spend some time taking a look, so we can merge this if possible. And then again, there's the changes that are needed to the test for the recent change, but that I think we can postpone the discussion after we assess what are actually the needed changes after the demo that is provided next week. Having said that, any other things, any other minor comments? Okay, then if not, thanks everybody for joining. It was a great discussion. Please do take a look at the document that it's here. It's in the link. Just go take a look. If you have any comments, just put them there. If anything else, just put them there. We have about a week to discuss this before the operator TST meeting. So please do comment and add things to it. In the meantime, again, Happy New Year, everybody, and my best wishes for the whole year. And I'll talk to you next week. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.